mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about season 1, episode 5 of Mare of Easttown, entitled Illusions. But before I get started, I wanted to give a shout out to everybody who has been watching these videos. Like, it's crazy to me because I would have never thought Mare of Easttown would be something that would do well for me on this channel. And when I say do well, by no means am I like on the cusp of stardom here. It's just like, better than most videos do. Like, you guys are watching, you're engaging, we're having conversations in the comments, and I think that's fucking dope. Like, I shout out to all y'all who watch these videos and who have dropped comments and have given me compliments on how I break down these episodes, or just, I don't even say break down because I'm not that fucking good, but like just talking about these episodes, like people who rock with it, man, thank you to y'all, man. It's been really interesting this past week to watch how last week's video continues to do decent numbers, and people continue to, talk about the show with me in the comments, and it's been so cool. So, thank you for those of you who have been rocking with me, covering this show. I didn't expect to be covering it. I certainly didn't expect to be covering it to this degree, but you guys have kind of like pushed me to, continue to bring high quality to these videos. I don't half-ass them by any means, but, when I feel like there's going to be a lot of eyes on this one, and now I'm starting to feel like people are waiting. Like, I want to see what he has to say about this episode. So like that motivates me to try to make a better video than maybe I would have otherwise. And not to say I had to put out shit, but I'm thinking like, man, I really gotta nail this shit. So thanks for the motivation too. So all that aside, ready to get to talking about this episode. There was a lot going on in this episode. I know I say that a lot. There's a lot going on in every episode, but this one in particular, there was a lot of stuff being done, even kind of like in between the lines, that I thought was pretty interesting. I kind of don't know where to start, but I am going to start with the same place that I always start with it, which is talking about the title of the episode. This show does a really good job of making you really think about why they named the episode what they do. And to kind of give you guys a little bit of backstory about this, I listen to a lot of other podcasts about television and movies. At least I don't as much now that I'm making these YouTube videos and these podcast episodes myself. But, I've listened to a lot of podcasts in the past, and they like to talk about the episode titles. And it's something that, I've never really thought about. I think prior to Game of Thrones, I never really looked at episode titles. But with Game of Thrones, we were so thirsty for any kind of information on what was coming that they would release the episode titles, and you just reading it like, okay, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And, right now, I think that this show in particular is really putting work in with these titles. Like they all mean something, and I think that's pretty cool. So this one's called Illusions, and just like last week, I think there's a lot of illusions that they kind of have the curtain pulled back from them. Like they're illusions on the surface, but we see the man behind the curtain on a lot of these illusions this week. And I think the main illusion and the purpose of the title, and I think that's something that they've done too. I think last week when I talked about the title, I said, hey, there's a lot of different, I don't even remember what the title was. I don't remember what the title was from last week, because my mind is, I just finished watching this episode. So my mind is kind of like all over the place. I take notes while I watch it, and then I kind of like recreate those notes in a way of like bullet points that I want to talk about on the video. So that's what I did prior to this, and that helps me arrange my thoughts a little bit better. But I'm still kind of like on a high from the episode, so it's hard for me to even think about last week's one. But like I said last week, there was like a main reason for the title. I really wish I could remember it right now. And then I came up with a few other ones. I'm like, I think these are also examples of whatever it was. Now it's bothering me. I'm just going to look. Not Chicago. That was Handmaid's Tale. Sisyphus. Poor Sisyphus. Yes, and I talked about Sisyphus and all the examples of these possibly like futile acts, right? So with illusions, I think that the main illusion here is the illusion of greatness. At the end of the episode, Colin and Mare have a really interesting conversation where Colin reveals that he didn't actually solve the case that he's known for. It was a situation of him, dragging his ass, not doing that good of a job. A private investigator's hired. That person, some drunk ex-cop, figures the whole thing out, and Colin blows him off. Guy ends up in hospice. Colin finds the files, sees that this guy had everything figured out, and everything fell into place. And Mare looks at him and goes, never, she says, I think great acts are overrated. I'm paraphrasing here because I didn't write down the exact quote, but she says like doing great things is overrated because people come to expect that from you, and they don't realize that you're just as fucked up as they are. And I think that's the main illusion of the episode, is the illusion of greatness. And that, you look at these people, like someone like Mare, who was, the star on the basketball team and a big deal cop, and people come to expect greatness from her. And she's like, I'm far from fucking great. Like I'm really messed up. And she lays out everything to him when Colin asks, how do you know what I want? She's like, I got a ex-husband who lives in my backyard. I got a dead kid who killed himself. All this kind of stuff. All the things that's wrong with Mare. And I think that's the main illusion. And I spent a little time thinking about that after she said it, because like there'll be times where I'll pause the episode to like take notes, and not just notes on what happened, but notes on my thoughts on it. And when she said that, I thought about that for a minute, and I thought that's a really interesting take on life. And I think it's the more I think about it, the more I think it's kind of true. I mean, you look at I think the most visible examples of greatness are like our athletes, right? And you look at somebody, we'll just say Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods, great golfer. You come to expect him to be great every time you see him play. And then if he is not great, it is shocking, or maybe even disappointing, or maybe even angering to a fan of his. That's like, this is a guy I've come to expect greatness from him, and he didn't deliver this time. And maybe I put a bunch of money on him because I expected that greatness. Like, so I think that's really interesting. And it almost gives you a little bit of empathy toward people who accomplish great things, which is weird, because you think like, hey, you accomplished something great, you should be on top of the world. Like, that's a great life accomplishment. And maybe a lot of other people haven't been able to succeed in that way. But that is also a lot of pressure, because you continue to be expected to succeed in that way. So I thought that was a really interesting line. I think that's probably the reason for the title of the episode, the illusion of greatness. But there are other illusions here too. Things that I kind of look at is like deceptions that kind of came to light in one way or another, right? So the first one I'm going to talk about, well, briefly. I'm not really going to talk about them at all, honestly. I'm just going to kind of briefly mention them. But the first one I think is Mare actually deceiving and deceiving Colin. I think the illusion with Mare is that she actually had real interest in him. During their date, they were having an incredibly painful conversation. And Mare just kind of cuts him off and mentions stuff about the case. And earlier in the car, she mentioned the case. And at that point, I thought, you know what? I wonder if Mare don't even like him. She's only seeing him because she wants to be able to ask him questions about the case. And then sure enough, Colin says, my mom said that you only want to see me because so you can stay close to the case. So I think that's true. And she might like him, for sure. She even smiled after they kissed. Like, I think she likes him, but I don't think it's in a serious kind of like relationship sort of way. I think it was manipulation. I think she was deceiving him, and I think it was an illusion. And all she really wanted out of this date was to have access to the case. So that's one illusion. Another was the illusion of Dylan's innocence. And Dylan may not have killed Aaron, to be clear. I still stand firm on what I said last week, and we'll revisit that later in this video. But Dylan's lack of involvement was definitely an illusion. We find out that Dylan was missing from his home that night. And then we also find out that he's working with Aaron's friend on some sort of cover-up. Like, he gave her information to give to Mare about the journals being in the drawer. We find out the journals are actually hidden behind a furnace. Whole lot of deception there, and a whole lot of stuff, kind of illusions that are now no longer illusions. Like, we know that these people are involved in some way. They may not have actually killed Aaron, but they have something that they feel they need to hide in order to avoid being fingered for killing Aaron. So that was another illusion. And then there was one more. Lori's marriage was another kind of like a minor illusion. We see. I don't know. My nose is so itchy. I think I'm snorting or something, but I'm not. By the way, I wouldn't be able to give this level of analysis if I was high on cocaine. But it just tickles. I don't know why. But Lori's marriage is an illusion too, because again, I don't know if we actually had a perception of Lori's marriage, but we find out that her husband has apparently a history of infidelity, and that somehow their kid Ryan knows about it. And something that I found interesting there too is when I said Lori's marriage. The episode opens with Betty Carroll having crashed into a utility pole, which causes a power outage throughout the city. Now, Betty Carroll is the woman, if you don't remember, from episode 1, and I think she appears again later. I think it was episode 3, I want to say. But she's the one who called Mare over in episode 1 because she said there was a peeper in the neighborhood. And then we see her again later when Mare's looking at the... was that a separate episode where she was looking at the security footage? And because the first time they didn't even have the camera set up. Second time she comes back, the cameras are set up and she deletes, whatever footage she finds. And I thought it was ironic that Betty's death, someone who is kind of almost like, she came off as almost like the neighborhood old lady snoop, like the one who's always like watching everything and paying attention to everything and gossiping. Like, it's ironic that her death put the city in darkness, but simultaneously brought a lot of shit to light. Like, I thought that was, I don't even know if they did that on purpose. Like, if that's like my own just affinity for finding plays on words. But yeah, her death put the city in darkness, but brought a lot to light. With like a lot to light being like the issues in Lori's marriage, because she overheard that with the power being out. She's walking around the house and there, her husband, John and Ryan are in his room. And he says something like, this will be our secret. So she finds that out during the power outage. Also, Mare discovers Siobhan's documentary about Kevin during the power outage. So like a couple of things got brought to light in the darkness. I thought that was an interesting irony there. Lori's illusion was the thing that I was talking about here. So I'm looking at my notes right now to make sure I'm covering everything that I wanted to talk about. So I mentioned, I already mentioned Dylan. So the other thing, and also with the Peeping Tom, it turns out that the Peeping Tom is just an old man with dementia who doesn't remember where he lives. Which, side note, man, like dementia is terrifying to me. Like if I ever, man, please don't ever let me get that. I can't deal. But the Peeping Tom being the old man with dementia, like that kind of wrapped up that mystery. And I'm curious maybe if I think about it a little bit more, or one of you guys puts in the comments, ultimately, what was the purpose of that part of the storyline? Because I felt like it was going to be a big deal, and then ultimately just turns out to be some old man with dementia. Like, was this meant just to kind of like continue to make Mare look bad because she slams this old man with dementia while she's currently suspended, so she shouldn't be doing anything? But I don't know. I'm curious to why they did that. Like, what was the point of that? Because I feel like if you take Betty Carroll and her death and the Peeping Tom situation out of the show, it doesn't really change anything. The only interesting thing that came from that was that her husband confessed to smashing Mare's mom, which was weird and kind of awkward in the moment, but then funny when Mare's laughing at it. Because you see this, like, if she's not taking it seriously, it's kind of like, okay, I now I see it's okay for me to laugh at it too, if that makes sense. That's kind of what that felt like. So another thing this episode did was it laid out a lot of suspects. I mean, and it didn't even really lay them out, because I think we've all kind of talked about these suspects, whether it's me in the videos or us in the comments have talked about several other suspects, and the show kind of laid them all out again, which I thought was interesting, because I felt like that was either going to result in a reveal of who actually did it in this episode, or maybe in the next episode. But so I mentioned that I forgot what was the other thing about somebody. There was something I thought about somebody being kind of cleared of having committed this murder. But what I do want to start with is the what's his name, Deacon Mark. So Deacon Mark, it comes to light that he well, not comes to light because it was a rumor. We hear kids discussing this rumor that he abused this 14-year-old, and that's why he got moved. And we find out that Aaron was with him that night. She asked him for a ride to, a ride home or something like that. He was going to drop her off. She gets a text from someone saying, meet at Brandywine Park. She gets frantic. He drops her off. And then when he finds out that she ends up getting murdered, he dumps the bike. And I think that Deacon Mark is guilty of a lot of shit, but I don't think he's guilty of Aaron's murder. I think we are supposed to take away from this that even though we saw Deacon Mark dump the bike, which made him look uber guilty, No pun intended on saying Uber when we're talking about dumping transportation. But that made him look super guilty. But I think now we can kind of say, like, I don't think he's involved in this. He's guilty of some really fucked up stuff, but he's not guilty of Aaron's murder, I don't think. But they did lay out other suspects again, right? So we have Billy Ross, which is the brother of John Ross, who is the husband of Lori and father of Ryan. Billy Ross, they were all together watching TV. Billy says, hey, anybody wants beers? He goes grab a beer. And somehow through conversation, we come to find out that Aaron actually lived with Billy for a while, for an indeterminate period of time, apparently, because Billy's like, oh, yeah, like 3 weeks. And then Lori's like, I thought it was a couple months. And Billy gets noticeably nervous. He leaves abruptly, his beer untouched, and Mare notices. For us as the viewer, this is supposed to be red flag. Billy's a suspect. That's what we're supposed to think, right? Cool. And I'm on board with him being a suspect, clearly. We also get laid out Dylan as a suspect again. And you guys have put in the comments, like, you guys have said Billy Ross, which I find interesting because the show prior to now, has not laid out any evidence of Billy Ross being a suspect. But people have put Billy Ross in the comments as a suspect, and that interests me. But Dylan laid out as a suspect yet again. And people have put in the comments as well that they still think Dylan is involved. And Dylan is clearly involved, but we don't know in what way. But like I mentioned earlier, Dylan is now back on the suspect meter. You know who's not on the suspect meter in this episode? Richard, who did not appear in a single scene in an episode where they laid out a whole bunch of suspects. I'm telling you guys, I really think it's Richard. So we see Jess. Jess is the friend, Aaron's friend. Apparently she was lying to Mare about these journals. They go and get the journals out of the furnace, like I mentioned earlier, and they're burning them. And Dylan's like, we said we weren't going to read them, which is interesting because we now know Dylan is involved in this in some way, whether or not he did it or not. We know that he is involved in some way, but he didn't want to read the journals. If you did it, why would you not want to read the journals? Especially that, like, that's your baby mama. Like, she could have put all kinds of crazy shit in there about you. You don't want to know? Like, the fact that he has no interest in what's in the journals, again, makes me think that he didn't actually do it. Like, there might be some other nefarious reason for wanting to enlist her friend in this deception and get these journals. It's probably just about the journals. And he's probably just like, just in case there's anything fucked up about me in there, I want to throw them out. But like, I think that, again, we're meant to look at Dylan, we're meant to look at Billy Ross, and we're supposed to go, oh, these guys suspects, And in an episode where they lay out all these suspects, who doesn't appear? Richard. And then when she's looking at the one journal, she grabs what looks to be a photograph and pockets it. I'm telling you guys, I expect some congratulations from you guys in my comments next week or the following week if that picture is a picture of Richard. I'm telling you guys, it's fucking Richard. But so she pockets that picture. And we still don't know who's responsible for Aaron's murder. But I am going to pat myself on the back right now because last week I said that the show wanted us to believe that that all of these situations are connected because they were all on this prostitution website. Katie Bailey, the girl who got taken last week, I think her name was Missy, and Aaron, because we found out that Aaron was signing up for the site to try to get money for the ear surgery. The show wants us to go, all of these are connected. And what did I say last week? I said, I bet you the show wants us to think that, but in actuality, the people who are alive that were kidnapped are separate from what happened to Aaron. And trying to connect the three together is again a red herring that the show is throwing our way to throw us off, I think, Richard's scent. We find out that this guy has Katie Bailey and Missy in the basement of this Benny's Tavern that I mentioned last week as well. There was another girl, I think her name was Hillary, that Katie Bailey mentions that Mare finds out about and tells Colin. They actually enlist some, I don't know who this woman was. I think she may be like a former prostitute and is now a high-end escort because she mentions like playing with old man's balls and stuff like that. So rich old man's balls. So I'm thinking she's like maybe like a former prostitute, but now is like a high-end escort that only deals with like rich guys. But she talked about, she recognized one of the photos, I think it was Missy's, as, you know, someone like, oh, I know where she used to hang out at. Mare asks her to ask around. They meet up later, and this woman, Tam, has brought in another young girl who I don't know if they say her name or not. And she basically describes like, hey, I almost got captured too, but I got away. She describes the guy, blue van. She has a partial plate. She said that she noticed he smokes Winston's because only her grandma smokes Winston's. And so they get 7 matches on the partial plate for a blue van. They go door knocking. They find this guy, the guy who actually had them kidnapped. Great scene, really intense scene, but ultimately, this is a guy that we don't know who this guy is. There's a new character that they introduced in this episode as the kidnapper, and he's now dead, and he's definitely not the person who killed Aaron. I don't think so. I think that kind of confirmed I'm not gonna say kinda. That confirmed what I said about the kidnappings and Aaron's murder being 2 separate situations and not all 3 linked to one suspect. But great scene at the end of that episode. Really intense. I loved how they're having this conversation, this guy's ratty ass house. And you could tell the music playing loud meant to drown out any sounds they might be making downstairs. The noticeable cameras, even though the cameras look new, the house looked like shit. We hear they start shaking the pipes, and he's trying to pretend like, yeah, it's a bad radiator. And like literally the pipes are moving. And them slowly coming to the realization, like, this is the guy. And then, like, the instant, I gasped when they got Colin. I did not see that coming. And, like, they generally set up a major character's death by previously giving that character, like, a big emotional moment. So when he had that big emotional moment with Mare, I should have at least suspected that Colin might not be longer for this world. I did not expect to see it in the next scene, but man, that was sick. I was really upset about that. The quickness of it. She's like, Zabel, he pulls the gun, boom, the other guy's faster. Colin's gone. And I really like Colin, man. I thought Evan Peters really did a great job in this role. Shout out to him for the little bit of time he had on the show. But he was really good. I really enjoyed him. But yeah, great scene. They have like a little hunting kind of scene within this house. And long story short, Mare ends up killing this guy despite having gotten hit herself. Looked like probably like around her wrist or forearm area. But yeah, really exciting scene to end the episode. We end with Mare just kind of sitting there, just kind of like taking it all in. Like, man, yo, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. So I think I've mainly talked about everything I want to talk about. So let's see. I talked about the multiple suspects. I talked about Dylan. I talked about Deacon Mark. I don't think he is any longer a suspect. We talked about Billy. I'm not sure. I still feel like Billy is, again, not guilty of this. He might be guilty of something else, but I don't think he's guilty of killing Aaron. But hey, I could be wrong. I talked about the irony of the power outage, the peeping Tom with dementia, the illusions. So yeah, I've covered everything except one last thing that I want to talk about real quick is during Mare's therapy session, she talks about the idea of depression or mental health issues almost being genetic. And I don't think it's genetic, but the idea of like passing down pain, I think that is really, really interesting. And if you don't know, May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. And I've always thought that there's a possibility that something isn't necessarily genetic, like it's something like, oh, there's something in your brain that can cause you to have depression. And there may be, but I don't look at it as like something in your makeup, in your DNA that makes you more prone to depression that you can then pass down to your children, or not even just depression, any kind of mental health issues, or I'll just say mental pain. But it's long been suspected that Black people suffer from that the pain of slavery has been passed down from generation to generation in Black people, and that you know exists still to this day, that there's some part of the pain of slavery that has been passed down into Black people. And I think the idea that you can pass pain down to your future generations, I feel like that's probably a real thing. And I like the fact that they broached that topic in this episode, the idea that Mare's father could have passed down his depression to Kevin, and now Kevin appears to have possibly passed at least something because Drew has the same tics, passed down something to Drew. Oh, also with Drew, real quick, why why after he was told to change his pajamas, why he come back into the room twerking on all fours? I'm like, man, Drew a little freak. Like, he just came out there popping like right back into the living room. But so I thought that was really interesting. And then I think that also confirmed what I said last week when I said that I paused it when Mare and Lori had a nice little scene on a park bench. And I said that I paused and I saw that the bench was dedicated to somebody, Fahey. I don't remember what his first name was. But I said, you know, that's Mare's maiden name. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's her dad. It was almost surely her dad. Like, her dad probably killed himself, got the park bench dedicated to himself. So, again, another pat on the back for me for noticing that and thinking like, oh, I wonder if that's her dad. And then, like, I think we can kind of assume that it was. So, really exciting episode, a lot of reveals. I really like the illusion stuff that happened in here. I really like the mental health stuff that happened in this episode. I really like the ending, really exciting. R.I.P. to Colin, really sucks to have him gone. They interjected a little humor with what happened with Mare's mom. That was funny. And with Dylan twerking in the room. I'm probably found that way funnier than anyone else did. But I'm just like, yo, why is Drew twerking right now? I think I called him Dylan just now, but before that. But Drew's twerking. Introduced a little humor there. So we have 2 episodes left. If you haven't watched the preview for next week, it's pretty cool. You might want to check that out. And I think that's it. I think I've covered everything I want to cover. So leave your thoughts in the comments on what you think about the illusions, what you think about the mental health being passed down, what you think about these suspects. Do you think it's Richard? I think it's Richard. I'm telling you, it's fucking Richard. It's not going to be. Billy is now too obvious. Dylan is now too obvious. Deacon Mark is off the table. It's fucking Richard. He didn't even appear in an episode that gave us this much information. It's fucking Richard. But tell me in the comments what you think, who you think it is, what you like about the episode, what you didn't like. I always try to address each comment I get, so you'll probably hear from me at some point, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.